Hello and welcome. This is Lisa Jones, and you are listening to the Exploring Death podcast. Hello and welcome to the Exploring Death podcast. I'm Lisa Jones, your host, and today I have an amazing guest with me. In fact, he's a personal friend. I've known him for years, and he actually got me started on my own mediumship path. His name is Roland Comtois. He's an internationally acclaimed spiritual medium and has over 40 years of experience as an inspirational speaker, author, Reiki Master, metaphysical teacher, grief specialist, and geriatric nurse. Roland's multifaceted approach to healing and crossing over, as well as the messages from his signature purple papers, leaves his audiences inspired. Welcome, Roland.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm happy to be with you today.
Oh, well, I am so excited to have you here. You are one of the original inspirations for me that, started me on my journey of being a medium. And in fact, I don't know if you remember me coming to your class.
No.
No, okay. Well, it's actually in my book. I talk about, I had gone to a class. I just quit my hedge fund accounting job, and somebody had told me about you, and you were having a class on mediumship. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. And you were starting the class, and all of a sudden you turned and you pointed right at me, and you're like, why are you here? And I'm like,
oh, wow.
To learn to be a medium. And you're like, well, you already are. I see Archangel Michael standing right behind you.
Wow.
And he's there, just supporting you all along the way. And truly, that was such a gift for me, because I still, to this day, doubt myself because, being that accounting mind, it's so hard for me to get out of that,
Sure.
that logical mindset. But I just know my life has just been so magical that it's true.
And how many years have you been in this?
That was 2010. So
oh, wow.
Yeah, and it really opened for me in 2004, the night my husband died, and I went to the other side and had a shared death experience. And then I started communicating with spirit. But again, my logical mind is just like, is this for real? Is this really happening? So anyway, thank you. A long time coming.
Well, welcome to the club.
Exactly. So tell everyone, how did you get started? I know you have an amazing story too on how this unfolded.
Well, my mother always told me that I would walk around the house following something, and she could never see what it was that I was following, but I always found my way to certain places, and then I would talk to something that was there, nothing that she could see, and I just did that for several years. And then when my grandmother passed away when I was 10 years old, it really opened the door to the greater awareness that there's something more, that death is just a step to another experience. And as a 10-year-old kid laying in my bed at 858 Vernon Street, Woonsocket, Rhode Island, second floor, middle bedroom, the blue curtains moved, and there was my grandmother. I saw her as clearly as I see you, and it began this quest at 10 years old to see what it was that was just beyond that veil or that doorway. She talked to me. I heard her. I felt her. I knew somehow in my heart and soul that she was okay. And for the last so many years, the number is big now, I have been having these conversations with the afterlife, and it started there. It continued in nursing school. I would gather my classmates and I would offer messages to them. And then when I went to work as a charge nurse at a facility, I then became the guy giving messages to my staff. And then I would sit with my patients as they were dying, and the doorway would open even further. So it started at 10 years old, but the truth is, it has never stopped. For the last 47 years, it's been evolving and doing more than it's ever done when I was a 10-year-old kid. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
It is incredible. And talk to us about your purple papers, because that's what you're really famous for. And I know you have a new book coming out. So also tell us about that.
Well, I have with me I don't know if I can bring them into the screen. So these are kind of what they look like, right? So they are 11 by 17 purple papers that start out blank. And after a moment of prayer and meditation, I sit with those purple papers. I say to myself, what message must I send that will bring healing and love? And then I hear a story and see a story, and then I feel the story, and I feel a loved one, and I begin to document that story, the connection that exists between two people. And then I go out into the world somewhere, and I take with me my purple papers. And by the way, they've traveled to 3 countries, and they go with me wherever I go, because I know somewhere, somehow, I'm going to meet the family of this guy, Michael, and the story that he needs to tell to his loved ones. So it starts out long before I meet an audience of people. It starts out in a quiet, sacred space where I feel energy, and I transcribe that energy onto those blank purple papers, and then somehow out there in the world, there's someone who needs that message.
Oh
You
my
know, there are
goodness.
a lot of people out there who need a message, who need a moment of hope, who need a moment of inspiration, who need to know that they're not alone, who need to know that there's more beyond here, who need to know that life continues, that life and love doesn't end at the last breath. And these purple papers are only one way of channeling a message or offering a story of love and hope.
I love it. And you know what? I'm getting the intuitive hit. Can you share that message of Michael? I feel like maybe somebody even listening to this
Sure.
podcast is what needs to hear.
So I'm going to read it to you so that it's easy to read. But this paper says, Michael was filled with cancer. I started with back pain, and he talks about his lower back pain. And he says it went everywhere. And he talks about how he was doing everything right. And even until the last treatment, he didn't think that things were going to get really bad. And then he lost hope, and he lost his way, and he passed. And he wants to tell the people that he loves that, you know, you did a beautiful thing for me. You stayed with me to the end. You held my hand until the end. And that message was recorded on 12/17/2018. I sat there in a quiet place, and some story came to me. This Michael tells the story of of what happened to him, and where the cancer was, and why the pain was there, and somehow someone is going to have a moment of peace about that. You know what's interesting now, though, with these purple papers? I'm beginning to feel the last names of the people. So yeah, last week I had a phone conversation with a man whose loved one was Mr. Marinelli. Now, I don't know any Marinellis. I'm a French guy from Rhode Island. I don't know, right? And there on Facebook Live actually is the relative of Mr. Marinelli. And every single word on that purple paper was transcribed from Mr. Marinelli through somebody like me to his family. Now that message is being delivered to his daughter in Michigan somewhere. You know, so when you think about it, the message brings a moment of hope, a moment of love, a moment of peace. Because in the world I live in, Lisa, that's what I think it's all about.
Absolutely.
You know,
That
and
is beautiful.
I am excited to say that I've signed a book deal with Llewellyn Worldwide, and the book is coming out on August 8th, and it will be stories about the purple paper, the people that were affected by the loss, and the stories of the people that passed on, and the significance of the message.
Well, and I can attest, I've been present at several of your readings where you have the purple papers and people connect with that particular purple paper in the moment. And it is an overwhelming, I mean, I've got tears just welling up in my eyes, and my heart is bursting
Yeah.
with joy as I think about it, because like you said, it gives them that peace. It gives them that knowing. I mean, you can't make it up, you know, you've already pre-written the story. You've already pre-written this beautiful message from the other side. And then the person just happens to be at your event,
You
and
know,
then connect the two. And it's just phenomenal.
it's mind-boggling and phenomenal. I'll never forget a moment when I was in Massachusetts, and a woman came up to me and she said, my son passed away. His name is this. And he told me in a dream last night that you have a purple paper from him on this date. So I
Oh
pull
my,
out I pull out my stack of purple papers, which is this big, by the way, that need to be delivered.
So that's
So
about what, 3 inches or so? I'm trying to
no,
just for
it's a
my
little bit bigger than that.
a little bit bigger than that. Okay. Oh
That,
yeah.
that's a lot bigger than 3
I'm
inches.
trying to give a visual for my audience if they're listening in on
It's hundreds, if not 1,000 messages yet to be
messages.
delivered.
Okay.
So this woman said to me, could you please look on a certain date at a certain moment? And I said, I will. And I went through the papers and I looked. And there in the papers, I'm getting emotional telling you this, was a message from a kid that passed unexpectedly, that didn't have a chance to tell his mother how much he loved loved her. And that purple paper, I pulled out in front of the audience like this, I held it there, and the entire audience changed. Her son came to her in a dream and told her that there was a paper there. He was right.
He was.
There was a paper there.
And how beautiful that you get to be that conduit. I mean, what a gift that you have and that you're sharing with this world, Roland, truly.
I can tell you, Lisa, that it takes my breath away every moment. When I'm standing there in front of a mother or a father or a daughter or a son who are able to take one deep breath and kind of be able to take the next step in their own lives after someone has passed away. You know what this really teaches us, though? It teaches us that we live on. That if you read the Bhagavad Gita by Westerners, they tell you that the spirit part remains standing because that's the part that makes us who we are, really. It's the spiritual part of us that makes us who we are. And these purple papers somehow validate that we remain standing, that we are still part of the evolution of life, that we are still part of the evolution of love. And whether it's a purple paper coming from a guy like me, or a message coming from you, or the feeling yourself that you know you're not alone, all of those are important moments of knowing that love lives on.
Absolutely. And how about for people that, I mean, certainly I recommend everybody go and see a show that you're doing or tune in live. I know you've got Facebook live events that you're doing all the time. And again, all this information will be on below the podcast. But what about like people getting signs? I feel like so many times they're like, well, I think I got a sign, but I'm not sure. And I'm like, well, first of all, you got to believe that you got a sign, right? I mean, what do you say about that?
Well, I always say, people say, come on, Ma, please. And then mom shows up. And then you start a negotiation with mom. Instead of just embracing that moment for what it is, you ask the question, you said, come on, mom, I need a sign. A sign comes. Instead of having that kind of a negotiating moment, just be in the moment with the experience of that message. And often not often, most of the time messages come at the right moment when we need them most, when we need a little push through the experiences of our lives. And moments are there and signs are there. They're constant, they're ever evolving, and they're present. We have to be opened. We have to be prepared. We have to be ready to see them and to experience them for what they are. But let's face it, sometimes you just stub your toe. Sometimes it's just a thing that happens. But 9.9 out of 10, it's a moment that says, I'm here. It's like, to me, somebody's whispering in my ear saying, I'm right here, kid. I got you. I got you. I'm going to stay with you. Can I just tell a little story about this?
Yes, please.
I spent my life telling my mother, I said, Ma, love is everlasting and Meme loves you. And, and my mother would say, yeah, okay, yeah. And she'd say, you're a nut, she'd say. And I'd say, no, Mom, not a nut. And we'd go back and forth. We went back and forth for years. And a few days before my mother passed away, and it's really hard to talk about, but I walked into her rehab room and there was a glow about her. There was peace. And I looked at her and she looked at me and I said, Mom, are you all right? Ma, you all right? She said, Roland, you're not a nut, she said. You think she should have said, I love you, kid. I love you. But she said, you're not a nut. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, I saw them last night. I saw them all. And she said to me, when my hand leaves yours, Roland, you won't have to worry about me anymore. Somebody else will look out for me, and I'll keep talking to you. And she said to me, what are you going to do when I'm gone? And I said, Ma, I have no idea. You never left before. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to live my life fully. I'm going to breathe in life, and I'm going to exhale my grief and pain, and I'm going to do everything I can to be a good kid, Mom. And then she said, and I'll never forget it, she said, well, then I'll see what I can do for you from the other side. And then she died in my arms. You and no one in this world can convince me that that moment when I think she's present, that I've just imagined it. You can't convince me that when a message comes through on a purple paper, that it's just an imagination. You know, you can't convince me that when you say, come on, send me a sign, a feather falls out of the sky, or a coin is found on the ground, or a picture of a loved one is found in some strange place, or a song on the radio that takes you back to an incredible memory is just an imagination. But maybe we should look at the imagination, because the imagination is the gateway to the universe. So maybe it works to help us. Maybe it helps us to find our destiny and to find our way after someone passes away.
Wow, that's so good. And then I want to take it that one more step because of the skeptics, you know, and I think that's one of the things that just keeps me, it like dogs me, that I'm just so concerned about, like I'm trying to prove myself to the skeptics. And I'm like, why do I do that when so many people are open to what we're doing here? But I guess there's, again, it's that scientific mind that just wants to somehow prove to people that this is true. So what do you say to that?
I also have an analytical mind. I want to know how it all worked out. But the reality of it is I've made a conscious decision to not prove this to someone. It speaks for itself. And I also had to come to the realization that we're not all on the same page. We're just not all on the same page. We don't believe the same way. We don't see the same things. If I pulled up the color purple, you might call it lilac, or you might call it something else. We just don't see it the same way. And I like you, I had to come to terms with that, because I wanted to say, look, Michael wants to say something, you know, and someone says, well, there's 1,000 Michaels in the world that have died. There are, but not this Michael's family. There's only one. So I don't make it my mission to prove myself to anyone. I don't make it my mission to prove this. I just go out there, do the best that I can, operate from a place of love, because you can't make a mistake there, Lisa. If you are truly channeling, if you are truly a medium and you're operating from that space of love and divinity, really, then you can't do harm, because love does no harm. And so that's how I look at it. And like you, you know, when they're calling you names, you know, you do your best to work it out, and you fight the next day, and you bring the light even closer, and you move even further on the journey. So I don't know. There's an interesting story of a man who was very skeptical in my audience, and he's sitting in the back room, and his arms are closed, and I had a feeling he didn't like me. You know, it's just a feeling. and he's staring at me, and I'm staring at him, and you know the spirit world's going to make me go talk to him. You just know it, right? That's how they are. They play with you, right? They make me go over there and talk to him about his father-in-law, and I go to give him this big message. His wife is sitting there, the daughter of the man that passed away, and the message is nice and loving and wonderful. And at the end of the message, I say to the guy, when you find the 3 pennies, and only when you find the 3 pennies, you will know that your father-in-law appreciates what you have done for his daughter. The guy said, baloney, and I don't think he used that language, but We'll keep it clean here. He said, baloney. And then at the end of the presentation, this man, very pale in skin color, his arms across, and he's rushing up to me, and he reaches in his pocket and he pulls out 3 pennies. In his pocket, he had put 3 pennies. He had no idea why the 3 pennies were there. But in that particular moment, he said to himself, maybe there is something to what this guy is talking about. Maybe, we all have to make the decision on our own. As Khalil Gibran says, the teachers of the world can only get you to the threshold of your own mind. All we can do as mediums is help people get to the door and let them open it themselves. Let them see for themselves what is there. And, if you can do that, then you've done a beautiful service to humanity.
Absolutely. I love that. What a great story for the,
Yes.
that couldn't, again, that's so perfect. I'm so glad that he actually put the 3 pennies in his pocket, because then you were able to, validate that. And that's
how that ever works out is so amazing to me, but it works out, and it's incredible when you think about it.
It is. Do you happen to have a story of just, I love how the spirit world, it's like they are the greatest comedians. I've just had some amazing things happen that are so funny. Do you happen to have a story about that?
Well, I can tell you that there was one very interesting moment still makes me laugh, in an event in Rhode Island when I'm doing a presentation, and there's a man in the room, and he's very intense, and he really wants a message from his brother. And in my head, I'm hearing very humorous kinds of things. So I walked up to the guy, I stood right in front of him, and I only yelled the word boo. Now, it was hilarious. And the way that it came across was so funny. And the guy laughed a laughter that he laughed only with his brother, because his brother would have pulled pranks like that. It was hilarious. The whole audience was in an uproar, and maybe you had to be there really to get the gist of the humor, but it was hysterical. And they are funny. They are funny. They are funny, they are loving, they are sincere, they are genuine, they are apologetic, they are willing. We have to be all the same things, though, to get the message from the afterlife. We have to be the same things as they are for us. We have to do it in the same way.
Absolutely. Well, and I was just going to say, I could feel the poignancy of you saying about the boo, I can imagine the laughter in the room, but I also could feel when you shared that story that he connected with his brother in that moment. It was just, and it was huge. And to be able to laugh that way, it was real healing for him to be able to do that.
The truth is, the people in our audiences are not really interested in seeing us. They're seeing the reincarnation of their loved one, so that they can have one more gaze, one more embrace, one more kiss, one more moment of love. That's what they're looking for. And if you, as a channeler or a medium, can deliver that experience in a heartfelt, loving, supportive way, then humanity changes. Not just the person receiving the message, humanity changes. I've seen it a million times. The entire audiences have changed as a result of one person getting a message. It's that powerful.
Wow, that's brilliant. I absolutely love that. In fact, are you okay if I pull a couple of cards about mediumship and just see what Spirit has to say?
I love that.
Okay, cool. Let me just pull 3 cards and we will see what wants to be shared about this. So the first card is generally the blockage card, and so I got energy on that. And what I'm getting about with mediumship specifically is that, people, they block the energy. It's like they're so busy, they don't want to, bring it in, and it's right there all the time. Like, what is it? You can't destroy energy, right? So
that's exactly true.
It's always there. So then the action card is grace, which I absolutely love. And I've got full body chills as I say that, because truly the way to let it in is to just, be of grace and be open and be willing, be humble, be, just be grace, right?
Mm-hmm.
To
I
allow
love
it come
grace.
in. I know. And then the outcome, which is just so perfect, is wisdom. And the more you do it, the more the mediumship works, the more you allow these messages to come through. The wisdom just, I mean, it's, what's the word? It proves itself, like you said.
That's
I mean,
exactly true.
yes.
It
And
proves
like you,
itself.
right, you don't need to prove anything because it proves itself.
Yeah, true. The other interesting part with your reading, with your 3 cards, is that I am very convinced that every human being is a medium.
Yes.
And I say to my audiences, you don't need me. I'm glad you're here, but you don't need me. And if anyone told you, go see Roland Comtois, no, you need you. And what you pulled the energy card, and the energy card is exactly what you say, right? It's about us unblocking or unlocking the vibration of love so that we are truly connected in that moment with someone that we miss, someone that we love, whatever the story that we're searching for. But we're all mediums. There's not one book that says you, Lisa, or I, Roland, are the ones. Not one book. I've never read it. Sorry, Lisa. Sorry
That's
to me.
right.
It's not us. But we are a thread in that experience, though. And we have an opportunity to really help change the forecast by being in a space of love and holding that energy for other people.
Yes, I love it. And that's the grace. And that's being that channel of love and energy, or, of love, and allowing the message to come through, which then is the wisdom, that.
Yes.
So it's just, I love these cards are just so fun.
They are fun and they're perfect.
They are. Oh my goodness. So I feel like we've touched on so many things. Is there anything else you want to share before we, tell people how to get in touch with you and all those good things?
I do really want to say to everyone who's participating in today's podcast that your loved one is part of you. They're part of your breath. They're part of your essence. And if you stopped for a second and stepped out of the chaotic energy of life and just stopped and sat with yourself and go into a place of peace and quiet, go into a memory that is joyful and loving, that energy is going to present you the wisdom and the teaching that somehow they're still part of you. Now, let's face it, though. Sometimes in a state of grief, we can't hear, see, feel, or know. We just can't. And we need someone to help us. So ask for help. If you're out there and you're grief-stricken, ask someone for support. Ask for help. Call someone. Talk to Lisa, make a connection, do something, listen to these podcasts or something, because it will help unlock the channel so that you can make the connection on your own. Love is everlasting. Love is eternal. It's a guarantee. I've read it in every single book I've ever read. In every religion, the foundation is the same. In every experience, it's the experience of love. The spirit's part remains standing, and the light that we are continues to shine. I think that's it.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
It.
Thank you. Thank you. And so just give the audience your website and any other information. And of course, it'll be, like I said, on my website as well, but just so they can hear it verbally.
Okay, well, thank you again. And thank you for inviting me. It's really nice to see you again after all these years. And I appreciate
Yes.
spending this time with you. If you want to reach me, you can go to rolandcomtois.net. It's ROLANDCOMTOIS.net, or find me on Facebook, and I'd look forward to sharing the journey with you as well. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Roland. Thank you for listening to the Exploring Death podcast. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Before you make any financial or legal decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Exploring Death. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.